Good morning, you're listening to Indy Live Radio, and this is the Friday morning daytime show. This is Marlene Halliday speaking, and I'm here with Val Gould, as normal. And the theme of the day's programme is campaigning in the new normal. The idea for having a show on that topic came about after Val and I had several conversations with people from different Yes groups, just talking about were they doing any street campaigning again, how were they managing to do it, were they reluctant, what were people's feelings about it. So today we've got 3 separate interviews. The first one is about the National Banner Library, and in that we'll be talking to Ruth Barrett of Grassroots Oban, and to Irene Stacey of Inver Yes, and to Sheena Stevens of Greater Glasgow Pensioners for Indy Group. So that's the first interview. After that, we're moving down to Berwickshire, and we're talking to Lorne and Campbell from Yes Berwickshire Group, and they're going to be talking about how they're out and about campaigning at the moment, but focusing on events that happen at bridges, specifically bridges over the A1 at the border. That's the second interview. The third interview is with Eileen Budd. So she creates fantastic short videos, 60-second videos. Some of them are about just ordinary Scots from history who you won't find in history books, but who nonetheless have done something amazing in their life. And her other 60-second videos are about topics that are all connected with the campaign for our independence. And she's also an illustrator. She's got a big project underway just now, which is to produce a new version of the old tales of Ossian, the poet warrior. So that's the third interview. Hope you enjoy them all. Here we go with the first one.
Good morning and welcome to. Got some great guests for our listeners today, and the first set of guests we have are 3 women who are going to talk to us about a very exciting initiative. We've got Ruth Barrett from Grassroots Oban. Hello there, Ruth.
Hiya.
Sheena Stephen. Sheena, you're still on mute now.
Yeah.
Sheena Stephen.
Yeah, good morning, everyone.
Sheena Stephen from Pensioners for Independence, and we've also got Irene Stacey from Inver Yes. And it was Marlene's idea to invite Sheena and Ruth and Irene along today, and they're going to talk to us about a very exciting initiative that's been on the go for a few months. Marlene, would you like to say a bit about that before we talk to our guests?
Yeah, sure. So, those of you who listen to the programme regularly, you'll have known recently Val and I have mentioned things about, how do you go about campaigning now that we can't campaign in the ways that we used to take for granted. So we've mentioned a few times this sort of phrase of like campaigning in the new normal, and it's just come into a few conversations that we've had with folk in different Yes groups over the country. And so today we're basically going to have a theme for the programme, which is just that, campaigning in the new normal. Is it possible? Is it safe? That's probably maybe the main thing, or just the first thing to think about, how to do it. And the three people we're about to talk to have all got some involvement, different kinds of involvement, but some involvement with what's been set up. It's called the National Banner Library. So we're going to go to Ruth Barrett in Oban first, because Ruth, as I understand it, this banner library was originally an idea of yours. Is that right?
Yes, that's right. Yes.
Tell us a wee bit about that.
Well, it was actually before coronavirus started, because it was probably late last year. I decided that it would just be a good idea. We needed banners, we needed posters around, just telling everybody about independence and informing people as much for educational purposes as anything, because a lot of people just do not know, the ins and outs of independence, and the too poor, too stupid, and all that sort of stuff, so I wanted to get that about. So I just thought it would be a good idea to have banners. And then I thought, well, they're quite expensive. So if you've bought your banners, then you're stuck with these banners. You can't keep buying new ones to change the message. So I just came up with the idea of, well, how about having a library that we could swap around? So I put it to the rest of the group, Grassroots Oban, and they said, yeah, let's go for it.
So what happened then? Because I mean, I've seen the ban. I've seen some of the banners because we've got them in the Glasgow Pensioners for Indy group. We joined the library, and Sheena's going to tell us a bit more about that. So how did it go from there? Did you just start getting designs? And I mean, you must have to work with a printer to create the banners. How did it go from there?
Right. Well, initially, I kept bringing it up, and everybody kept saying, yes, it's a good idea, good idea, good idea. We didn't do anything, of course, until coronavirus came along. And it was like, well, we can't really do anything now. We can't go out leafleting. We can't do this. We can't do that. What can we do? We can do the banners. Come on, let's get it going. So it was actually another guy in our group, Nick Bowles, who phoned me after one meeting and said, come on, let's just get this done. So Nick was is the person that's created our website. So he said, I'll do all the website stuff, and we'll find some some designs and such like. So the place to go initially was obviously Indy Poster Boy, because he's got designs anyway. So we approached him, and he was really excited. Said, "Oh, fantastic! This is what I was hoping would happen." So we went to him, and within the space of about a week, we had everything on just a lot of his designs on the website, and it was all kind of up and running. And then we just put it out to the national, and tried to boost it that way, and also Grassroots Oban joined the regional network, Yes Highlands and Islands, which has been absolutely fantastic, very, very supportive. And the majority of the banners are actually across the Highlands now. I'm really, really wanting to push it down into the Central Belt and beyond to the borders. But that's having a bit of trouble. So I'm hoping that this might help with that.
Indeed. So these banners, they're quite big, aren't they? They're about 2 meters long, as I'm remembering.
The ones we're doing, they're 2 meters by 1 meter. Now, they're not actually that big as far as a banner is concerned if you're sort of driving past on a main road. But we decided to keep it to the 2 meters by 1 meter because we wanted to be able to put them on people's garden fences, because you've really got to put them somewhere where they're relatively safe. Where people can keep an eye on them, because they will be stolen, they will be vandalised. They are being stolen, they are being vandalised. So the idea of putting them on people's garden fences, just in a housing estate, it doesn't have to be by a busy road, just on a housing estate where people walk past or they drive past, they're not driving that fast, so they can see them. So that's why the size. Some people are saying they're too small, but they can get bigger ones if they want. But we're sticking to the same size so that when groups choose locations for them, they know where they're going. They know that the same size banners are coming, and they've got places where they fit.
Yeah, good. So you mentioned that Yes Highlands and Islands got involved with it. So Irene, just to bring you in, is that how you got involved yourself?
Yes, we were asked about having some banners and displaying them. So we got 5 banners from Ruth, and got 5 very willing volunteers to put them up in various places in Inverness. 3 of which are on very busy roads and very popular. So many people stopping to have a look and read. And we have, touch wood, up to now, only had 1 stolen, sadly, because it was on a very good place. So that's that place out. But they're very good. And we swap around between the 5 of us every so often just a change, and just to give people something different to read. So it's an extremely good idea, and we're quite. We've used them actually. Banners out on the street, on the bridges in Inverness,
right.
other banners as well. And we've had lots of toots and shouts from cars, and well done, and basically good to see you back. So
that's so. Do you put them up? Do you put them up and then leave them there, or do you always have someone near the banner? Actually, presumably you do just put them up and leave them, because it couldn't have been stolen otherwise.
They're outside people's houses, and touchwood, mine's the only problem I have is when it's very windy. I have to go out and make sure it's still standing. But to date, nobody's tried to steal it. But no, they're all mostly very well attached, and no, they're brilliant. Well done, done, Ruth.
Sheena, I think in Glasgow, you guys have been using them with Pensioners for Independence. I think you've been using them in a slightly different way. Is that correct?
Yes, that's right. Yeah, I would like to say thanks very much to Ruth and everybody else that was involved in actually initiating the idea, Ruth, and I think it's absolutely brilliant. Like Irene, we get the 5 banners. We've changed them over once. I think there was some kind of difficulty about the handover thing. It was quite far away and meeting someplace to exchange them. But we did manage to change over the banner. We've now got 5 new ones. The only downside, I would say, we tend not to like the faces ones. Sorry. I think if people glance at it, they think you're promoting either Boris Johnson or whoever's up the face. So it's just amongst our group, we really don't use the faces ones.
Sheena, you might have to describe what you mean, what the face. I know what it looks like, but you might have to describe it.
Some of them have just got words like maybe a quotation or something, and as Ruth said, something positive about independence, like all the economic benefits of independence, or renewables, or water.
Yes.
Quite a good one that people like is the one about if Scotland is so awful, why do Westminster want to hold on to us? And that's really does seem to resonate with a lot of people, and it's easy to read from a fair distance. So, but we never leave the banners unattended. Never. The good point about them is you don't need much organisation to go out with the banners. I wouldn't say go out on your own, but 2 people. It's always safer to have 2 people. And we go someplace where there's railings, maybe outside a park, where there's lots of people walking their dogs. There's buses and things going past. It's quite difficult sometimes to get places where there are railings. We never had been told to take them down or anything. We're not in the park, just outside the particular park we tend to use. We've used Alexandra Park and Alexandra Parade, which is quite central, and also in Glasgow Green, outside a pub, but that's not so busy at the moment as we're in lockdown and the pubs are all shut. So, but we've managed to carry on with the stall, which we have in Argyle Street, which is very busy. It's picking up quite a lot now. People are starting to do the Christmas shopping. So we put the gazebo up and we put 3 banners, 2 at one side. We tie them onto the gazebo and 1 at the other side of the gazebo. So there's lots of footfall there. And if people don't want to stop, they can see the banner, and it might just spark something in them to go and read something, or think a different way.
Yeah.
Can I ask you a question, Sheena? Irene there was mentioning, they've had lots of positive responses from passers-by. I was wondering if you've had any negative responses as well, or is it mainly very positive engagement?
Yeah, I mean, it is. We also we social distance. There's usually maybe up to 6 or 7 of us at the stall. Yesterday it was very windy, and although we've got sandbags to hold the gazebo down, it was starting to take off. And but we persevered, and we did our 2-hour stint. Yeah, we hand out the leaflets. I've had 2 people only just saying that they don't want to touch anything, and that's quite respected, that's fine. But that's 2 people out of lots and lots of people I particularly do, and none of the rest of them had really very much negativity about it at all. Yeah,
I don't hardly ever, I think, been down in the stall in Argyle Street when it's on. I do go to another one we run out in Milngavie, but I happened to be in the town yesterday, so I popped by along to where you were just setting up the stall by the time I arrived, and I was really struck at how well you had the one about 90% of water in Scotland, and it just stands out. And anyone walking up Argyle Street, they may not stop. Well, most people don't stop, but almost everyone's going to see that. So somewhere or other, the message is getting across, whether it's folk who, are not interested or a wee bit too shy to come up and talk, because that applies to some people. But actually it's very eye-catching. And anyway, I was there for a wee bit, and there was this chap had stopped. He was about 5 or 6 meters away from that side of the gazebo, so he could see that big banner. And I we just got chatting, so it is a bit funny, isn't it? Because we've both got masks on and we're 6 feet away from each other, and I'm a bit deaf anyway, but so I sort of said to him, well, what do you think of that? And he just said, is that true? I went, oh yeah, it's true. There isn't anything on these things that isn't true. And he just went, wow. He said, oh, but I don't have a vote. It turns out he was here, he's an Egyptian, and he was here with his wife who's working in Scotland, so probably, he won't have a vote. He's not trying to live in Scotland permanently. But, it was obvious that it just made an immediate mark on to this chap who knew nothing about it. So presumably it does it even more of an effect when people go by and well, maybe they do know a bit more about Scotland's resources. They at least know that there's a lot of people in Scotland that want to be independent. So let's go back and can we explain a little bit about how the library works? Because it is a library, and Sheena, if you said you've already swapped with one other group, but it's also true that when you join, there are different kinds of banners, isn't it? So I already have mention of one about resources, and Sheena's mentioned this. There's some that have got faces on them. So Ruth, could you maybe tell us a bit about how the selection of banners works?
Yeah, well, we ask groups to buy 5 banners. It costs £160 for the 5 banners. That is just what it costs to have them made and have them sent to the group. We ask people preferably to choose from different categories. So we've got quotations, which is what I think Sheena was mentioning about with the heads on them. So you've often got a photo of somebody like Boris Johnson with the most ridiculous quote that he's made, So I must admit, I feel similar. I'm not overly keen on the ones with faces on them. Having said that, apparently the Boris Johnson face is a good one to have in Scotland, because everybody hates him that much that it does draw attention. And normally you wouldn't put your opposition's pictures on your leaflets and things, but apparently with Boris Johnson, apparently it works. However, so that's one category, the quotations. Then you've got memes, which is it can be anything really. I mean, we've got one banner with a picture of the Glenfinnan Viaduct, and the slogan it's got a steam train going over it, and the slogan is "Independence, we're getting there." That was a bit of a play on the old British Railway. Then, but, young people won't know about that. We're a bit old. Ideas like that don't actually particularly educate, but just say something. We've got a beautiful one. It was sunrise over the Firth of Forth. There's a ship coming up, beautiful colours, and you've got the wake of the ship. Absolutely beautiful photo that my son actually took on his drone. And I think the message on that is something along the lines of building a better Scotland. I can't remember exactly what it is. So those are the memes. And then we have statistics. So these are nearly all Indy Poster Boys ones where he's quoting, the statistics of how much natural resources we have, or the difference in pensions between us and somewhere else. So those are the three main categories. So we just ask people to try to choose a variety, so that, because you've got to bear in mind, although you're choosing them, you're not going to see them again for a long time, hopefully, because they're going to go around all the other groups. There is one banner that we've had designed fairly recently, and I'm actually thinking of, every time a lot comes to Oban, of swapping one round, and I'll show you which it is. You'll recognise it immediately. Believe in Scotland?
Oh yes, so Ruth, for the benefit of the listeners, Ruth is holding up a visual with various of these are the visuals from the Scotland the Brief, aren't they? That's really excellent.
So that one has got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, round about 10, 12 different statistics on it. Mm-hmm. It's eye-catching. Yeah. I've found in the Oban area that's caused no offence to anybody. It doesn't say yes on it. It doesn't say independence on it. It simply says believe in Scotland.
Yeah.
But there's no comeback with that. With yes, you can say no.
Yeah.
But with believe in Scotland, who's going to say no, I don't believe in Scotland? So it's a really good slogan to use. We're using that more and more now on the banners. But that one, I think, would be a good one for people to have, all the time, to be honest. We're wanting an awful lot more of the graphics from Believe in Scotland, from Gordon McIntyre Kemp.
There's another very good designer who comes up with posters and designs. He does a lot for the West Lothian group, and his poster. He's a really good designer, and he doesn't really go much for having many words on a poster, so he tends to do it more with the image. And some of his are great. What I've noticed recently, especially with Stuart Kerr Brown, the chap's name is, his posters, they've somewhere I think we've turned a corner with these memes, so that now people are coming up with posters, and the background assumption is that Scotland will be independent. So not all of them. I mean, obviously there's a great role to be played, especially for the ones about resources and everything. But it's kind of like the assumption is, okay, that's going to happen, and the posters are more like where we go from there. Like, he's got one, and it's a big key. It's all in blue and white, so it's like the Saltire, but the colours on the poster. It's just a big key, and if the theme is unlocking Scotland's potential, and I don't think it says anything about independence. So I've been really struck by those. So I'm just seeing that I've just noticed the time, because we've got about another 10 minutes before we have to stop. We've got some, but just before we do that, what are you thinking yourself about campaigning now? I mean, are you feeling there's ways to make it safe and okay with people? Is it? I mean, I know it's working in Glasgow because I talk to Sheena quite often. Irene, what are you feeling about that?
Well, we've been talking about getting out with the gazebo, but there's been a bit of will people not like it because, it's not safe, we don't want to take the leaflets. So it's in the throes of being discussed.
Yes, yeah.
So, but I know the time when we went out on the bridges with Ruth's banners, and we also have other banners that were made by Inver Yesers, a lot bigger, and it was quite an uplifting experience. You think, we're back, we're doing something.
Yeah.
After all these months, finally we're doing something. Yeah. So what we're doing is online stuff, which doesn't really get to everybody. So it's wonderful to get out with the banners and do this, and hopefully get the message home to more people.
Yeah, and Sheena, you've had sort of similar feelings, I think, about being out and about.
Well, we're all quite a bold lot, really. And I think we're not homebodies. We do like to get out and about. They were finding it quite difficult to become isolated. I mean, at the full lockdown, yes, I mean, we closed the stall down. And if that happens again, we'll not be doing the stall. There's no question about that whatsoever. But I can reassure Irene that certainly it's very minimal, the negative response that we get. And, nobody's actually come up and said you shouldn't be here. So, there's no harm. You could try it and see. Maybe people in Inverness have a different kind of attitude. But I mean, Glasgow is a very big city and the prevalence of COVID is higher here. So you would think in this area that you would. Even in Mulgai, where Marlene said they don't do the gazebo at the moment, but they're going out doing the banner, which is very easy. You can carry them on a bus if you don't have a car to wherever you're going, meet up with a friend, and you can just either stand there holding them or you can tie them onto a banner and you don't have to hand out leaflets. I know that the girl that does it in Mulgai, she doesn't hand out leaflets so much, but it's just your preference. We do wear masks and we do try and keep distant from people, but we find it's the public that tend to come to us and we are the ones that are going, just a minute, So haven't found that at all. So I would give it a try and see the different. None of us are in a vulnerable group apart from our age. I mean, I can understand if people have vulnerable or health issues where they wouldn't want to totally understand that. That's just being said.
Yeah. And what about up in Oban, Ruth? Is anything street campaigning up there?
No, to be honest, our group just won't do anything. They just say, no, we're not doing anything. So I'm just focusing very much on the banners, the guest speaker meetings that we have, and work with Yes Highlands and Islands, which is tremendous. And I mean, through that we're developing the national network now as well. So there's an awful lot of work, sort of the kind of thing that nobody really hears about, but it's preparation, main campaign. So I would say, apart from the banners, the banners are the public thing. The guest speaker meetings that we run, we've got a mailing list of nearly 200 people for those now, so they're becoming quite popular. And those I really look upon as being educational. It's for ourselves to learn, and then when we're asked about things, come the campaign, we'll be able to answer. Yeah. So look out for the next guest speaker meeting, which is actually on the 24th of November. Keep that one free. I can't tell you who it is at the moment.
Oh,
it's a good one, but I can't tell you who it is. I can't tell you till next Wednesday, maybe Thursday, and then I will announce it and I'll send out an email to everybody on the guest speaker list, and hopefully it'll get into the national as well, but obviously I can't control that. If anybody wants to join the guest speaker list for those Zoom meetings, just send an email to contact@grassrootsoban.scot.
Great, good. For anyone who's listening who hasn't joined some of Grassroots Oban's events, they're excellent. I don't know if it's you that gets the speakers. You probably have a team that you work with, I guess, Ruth, but you certainly put together some really, really good speakers. And not just speakers, also panels. That one where you had John Curtis there, that was brilliant. I was quite surprised the extent with which he took part, actually, because, you know, he didn't just kind of sit back and give the factual stuff. He gave a few opinions as well. But they were excellent. So maybe we have to wrap it up there. And it's been really good talking to you. But the thing is, what we should say before we go is, if anyone's listening, they're part of a Yes group, and they're thinking they might want to join in, how would they do that?
Send an email, same address as I've just said, contact@grassrootsoban.scot. And I'll tell them all about it. I mean, you can go onto the website and go to the website it's not www. It's just grassrootsoban.scot, and then /banners-library, and you've got all the information on there. You've got the terms and conditions, everything you need to know. But again, if you want to email, then just send me an email and I can help you out further.
Great. Wow.
Can I just say that I've been to quite a few of your Zooms, Ruth, and they're absolutely fantastic. I think it's a wonderful innovation that we're now able to just at the touch of our... I mean, presumably we could have done it before, but it's become a reality. It's one of the upsides of the lockdown that we're now able to attend, you know, meetings organised by other Yes groups in different parts of the country. And you have had some fantastic ones up in Grassroots Oban. So I'd really like to thank you for that. It's been smashing.
Thank you. Well, look out for the 24th. Keep the date free.
Will do.
That's great. Well, thank you, all three of you, for coming on and chatting to us this morning. And anyone else out there who want to find out more, get onto Grassroots Oban website, and you'll be able to see some of pictures of some of the banners as well. So we're just going to, before we move to our next guest, which are who are two people from Yes Berwickshire.
Bye Sheena, bye Irene, bye Ruth.
And just to explain, Val and I interviewed Lauren and Campbell not long after Scotland's men football team had just got themselves through into the Euros 2021. That's why you're hearing us talking about the footy. Yeah, welcome back to Indy Live Radio and the daytime show. Val and I are usually in Glasgow, but we've got a new Zoom call set up with Lauren Anton, who's part of the Yes Berwickshire group. Lauren, thank you very much for coming on the show, and really pleased you agreed to come and chat to us. How's the weather down there, that part of the country?
It's a pleasure. The sun's shining at the moment. It's nice. Windy, but nice.
And just before we went on air, Lauren, you told us that you were an extremely happy man this morning after the fantastic football result.
It's terrific. At long last. I mean, for years and years, they've been saying to us that they haven't got the quality players, which clearly we have. It's just how you manage them, you know?
Aye, that's the men you're talking about there, Lauren?
It is, yeah.
Because you know, I'm not a follower of football much, but even I started watching the women's football team when they were in the World Cup, weren't they? Yeah. And I think they have. They've been in the Euros as well, actually, a few years back. But yeah, no, it was great seeing the guys do that. But knife-edge stuff, and you know, when your opponents get an equaliser in the last 30 seconds of the game, you're kind of going, oh no, it's happening.
That was when the whiskey came out.
I must admit, my heart, I mean, I was nearly sick when that happened, because I thought, this is going to be the same old story of Scotland snatching defeat from the jaws of victory.
Again.
Especially when it went to a penalty shootout, I thought, But it was just amazing. Actually, on Facebook last night, a friend of mine, who I was a teacher in the East End of Glasgow, and this friend of mine was also, and she said that David Marshall, that's the goalie, isn't it?
Yeah.
She was his teacher. She was his guidance teacher in the Andy. The Andy is St Andrews Secondary out in Carntine, and she said that at his second year career, his options interview, she asked him what he hoped to be, and he said he wanted to be a footballer. And there's lots of wee boys say they want to be footballers, so it's absolutely wonderful to see somebody actually going from a wee boy like that to becoming a sort of national hero, if you like.
Yeah, sainthood guaranteed for him.
Yeah, I'll be a lot of folk calling their wee babies Marshall or David, I think. Yeah. Anyway, so let's move on to talking about campaigning, because that's what you're here to talk to us about today, Lauren. Can you tell us just a wee bit about the group that you're in and what you've been up to recently in terms of, are you managing still to campaign at the moment? How are things going in Berwickshire?
We started, I would think, 2 years ago on the bridges, because we'd seen them doing it in Fife and over the M8, and I think they do it over the M74 as well. So we started doing it on a couple of bridges which are just north of the border. They're actually perfectly placed. There's one over the dual carriageway on the A1, which is only about 200 yards from the border.
Yes.
So we started off originally with just flags, the saltires, the Lion Rampants, the Yes banners, the EU ones, just having flags. And then we joined 2 or 3 of the flags together. We got eyelets put into them, and we joined them all together to make banners. But then when it came up to the time of the EU vote, we thought it would be good to have a banner that we could use on the bridge that had something to say. And the first one we had, it's a fairly modern bridge, so it's got uprights along the side of the bridge that are 2.5 meters apart. So we thought we can get banners made that we can use on the bridge. So the banners are in 3 parts, and we tie them onto the bridge, and the uprights are 2.5 meters apart. So the banners we've got are 2.5 meters by 700 deep. And the first one we had we got it made in one of the printers in Berwick-on-Tweed. So the first one we had made said, "Welcome to Europe," in big letters along the top, and a warm and generous Scottish welcome to everyone underneath. And we used that up until the time of the EU vote, and around the time where the first move was made to leave on the 1st of January, just passed. Then when all the stuff started to happen in Westminster about removing Scotland's powers, we had another one made, and these are all the 3-part ones that we tie onto the bridge across the A1 as you're coming north. The second one said, "Defend Scotland's Parliament." Big enough, smart enough, rich enough underneath. And the one we're thinking we might get done to start the new year in the run-up to next May is "Toot and vote for independence," and independence is normal underneath. Yeah. So the top line of the banner is it's 700 mil deep, these banners that we've had made. The top line is 400, and the one underneath, the smaller line, is 150. And we tie those onto the bridge. The police have visited us on several occasions and have been absolutely fine about it so far.
Good.
So the way the coronavirus has worked is with all the social distancing rules and that, we decided that we would have, and probably in the future, so we can cover more time, we do it in shifts. So we have 12 to 15 volunteers usually. So what we do is we have 4 people at a time, a team of 4, and the last time we did it, we managed to cover 6 hours on a Saturday on the bridge.
That's a good turnout of people, 15 of you doing that, isn't it? That's excellent.
It is. I mean, I suppose the fact that it was Saturday helped, because obviously folk have got work, but the Yes Berwickshire group is, shall we say, the majority of them are folk of a certain age, you know. So we managed to run the troops out, you know.
Yeah.
So it's good. I mean, you get the usual aggravation. You get people giving you the finger and all the rest of it. But I always think it works two ways. If it's annoying the unionists, that's brilliant. If it's making the folk that believe in independence happy, that works too. So you're working both ways, you know.
That's great.
Yeah, that's really good.
We've got another guest joining us shortly. Campbell McEwen is coming in. Do you know Campbell? Is he a friend of yours, a colleague that helps on the same project, Lauren? Hi there.
Hi.
Hello there. Is that Campbell?
It is, yes.
Hello, Campbell. It's Valerie here and Marlene, and we've got Lauren Anton in this Zoom call as well.
Morning, Campbell.
Hi.
Great that you've managed to join us. You can hear us okay?
Fine, yes.
So basically, Lauren has just been telling us about this project that you've been involved in as part of the Bridges for Indy. So you've joined us just now. So he's been telling us that you've been getting quite a good turnout and whereabouts you've cited it, and that he made us smile there by saying that that it motivates Yes supporters, but if it annoys the unionists, well, that's all to the good. So what's your take, what's your experience been, Campbell, of being involved in this project?
Right, well, I have to admit, when I first heard the idea of standing on a bridge waving a flag, I thought it was stupid. And the first time it happened in Berwickshire, we were in Berwick, and we thought, we'll drive under the bridge and have a look. And I thought it was marvellous. So we circled round and joined them on the bridge, and it was such a good atmosphere. So next time at the bridges, we went. And it's amazing, because if you're out leafleting, say 200 leaflets, 200 houses, you meet maybe 5 people at the door, or maybe 2 or 3 people on the pavement. But if you're on a bridge, you do get, and you don't realise this until you experience it, you do get eye-to-eye contact with the passenger and sometimes the driver. So you've got a human response, and that's really good.
Yeah, absolutely.
You very often get a wave, or a toot of the horn, or a flash of the light. Sometimes you get a road sign, but not always. And there have been some amazing things. I remember there was a Chinese bus. Okay, so they don't have a vote, but never mind. A Chinese bus with a Chinese driver, and they saw us way down the road, and they're standing in the aisle waving.
Wow.
People waving Scots wanting independence.
I think it sounds like you've got a really good location for it.
We have 2 bridges, one about 150 metres up from the border. You actually see the border from it. It's quite exposed, but it's a good place. And then about 2 miles further up, there's one at Ayton, or near Ayton, and it's good. It's more sheltered. And it's actually a busier road because it's traffic on the bridge crossing the A1. Sometimes they stop and they say, "What are you doing?" And they've no idea what we're doing until we tell them. And maybe give them a badge, sometimes a flag, sometimes a book to take away, and they're happy. That's where we.
Can I play devil's advocate here, right? So I'm not. This isn't me thinking this, but it is something that somebody did say to me once. So I'm going to run it past you. And Lauren, are you still there? Can you hear it?
Yes, I am. Yep.
I would just like you to comment on it. As I say, I'm playing devil's advocate here. It's not my view, but I remember about a year or so ago, actually, when the Bridges for Indy thing started up. I was talking to a friend of mine, and her husband had great independent supporters. They're very active. They did a lot up in Stornoway during the first referendum, and they're totally committed. But they were quite against this idea, and she said that her husband felt it was dangerous, and that she said all it would take would be one accident where somebody might say, well, they were distracted by flags on the bridge or whatever, and that would kind of taint the movement if there was a road accident and there was any suggestion at all that that looking at the flags or being distracted had been a factor. What would you say to that? Is that something that's ever occurred to you? Has anyone ever said that to you? Come to you first, Lorne, perhaps?
Yeah. I mean, it's something we have to consider all the time.
Yeah.
I mean, another issue that hasn't been spoken about yet is the issue of weather. One of the good things about the two sites that we've got is one of them is. I mean, the first thing to say is that both of them are visible from a long distance.
Yep.
You're not coming round a corner and being confronted with something that you have to look up to quickly and then look away again. You can see them probably at Ayton. You can see them coming from the north. You're looking at a quarter to half a mile. Coming from the south, you're looking at the best part of a mile.
Mm-hmm.
And it is probably a mile in both directions when you're at the one which is actually at the border. What we have to make sure is that they're properly secured. And the other thing is weather. If it's windy, then luckily one of them, the one on the border is quite exposed and the one at Ayton is quite sheltered. So it's something that we have to think about.
Yeah.
But it is a concern, if you like. That nothing should ever fall onto the carriageway. It's a concern, but we think it's a manageable concern. Can I put it that way?
Yes, that makes perfect sense to me. What about yourself, Campbell? Do you have anything to add to that, to what Lauren said about the safety aspect?
Safety, very, very important. We're very well aware of this. Now, we tie banners onto the bridge. Lauren, who was in the Navy, is very good with knots, and they're tied very securely. People holding a flag. Now, we have to be careful there. They must not let go of the flag. They must always have at least one hand on the flag.
Absolutely.
And this is just a fact that if you're on the bridge, you hold your flag. You don't put it down. You don't wave around and chat to someone not looking what your flag's doing. You concentrate on the flag.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Now, before the virus came along, we used to have a lot of people on the bridge, and there was a lot of chat going on between people, which was good, meeting up, learning things. But we had to be careful that we were holding the flag.
Yes.
Well, we've got restrictions, and we're 2 meters. We've got fewer people, and actually this works really well because we work in shifts. Normally we'd be on the bridge for maybe 2.5 hours, which is quite a long time. Now we're on the bridge for 2 hours, and then the next lot come in. So we can, in total, we can be there for 6 hours, which is good. But we're very well aware of safety. And the police, last time I was on the Ayton Bridge, the police passed twice in their van, didn't stop. The second van gave us a wave, but later they came back and they stopped.
Yes.
I wasn't there at the time, but they inspected what we had.
Mm-hmm.
We were very satisfied.
Oh, that's
good. Fine, keep going, and off the way.
That's brilliant. So you've got the official seal of approval from the constabulary.
We had, but every time we're on the bridge, safety has to be thought about first.
Yeah, I mean, I hope you don't think that it's me personally that's being critical. It was just that I think that it's something that does occur to people, and that's why I wanted to raise raise that issue so that you could explain all that to the listeners?
It's right that it's raised, because if you have people not paying attention, not doing things properly, it could be extremely dangerous.
Yeah. So if there were people out there listening, Campbell and Lauren, that were keen to maybe start doing this near where they live, what advice would you give? What practical advice would you give to them, apart from what you've already said, which is, being very, very careful about like things being properly held and properly secured? What other advice would you give to people if they were thinking of starting to do this in their area?
I think the thing that has to be considered is, can you see what we are doing from a long distance?
Mm-hmm.
I think it has to be something that people aren't taking a quick look at when they're turning a corner or at a junction or something like that. It has to be somewhere where there's a clear view from both directions. And it's other than that, it's just the safety of the people that are doing it, making sure there's a good pavement and there's plenty of space. Other than that, I think we've probably covered most of the things that I can think about.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like it sounds like you're doing an absolutely amazing job, that you're there for 6 hours, that you're in a fantastic location, that you're getting lots of visibility, and a lot of positive reaction as well.
Oh, the reaction's great, terrific, from most people. And the other lot, well, we just have a chuckle,
It's a bit more, this is true, a bit more symbolically, it's just fantastic, isn't it? So you've got cars driving over the open border. Well, according to some people, the border doesn't exist, but, they've just come over the border, and the first thing they see, at least when you're there, is are your banners on it, and the one that, it says independence is normal. I mean, it has an effect whenever that happens. But for that to be the first thing that someone sees as they drive over the border is fantastic. It's just great that you're doing that.
It's not the first thing they see when they cross the border, because there are 3 large flagpoles with 3 salt tires at the border.
Right.
So they see that first, and then minutes later they see us.
Great. Yeah. Even better then, isn't it?
Yeah.
So do you? So you're doing that over? Which road is it? Is it A68 or the A1? A1, yeah.
A1, yeah.
Do you do it? Have you ever tried doing it on other bridges? I mean, even bridges in the towns down in Berwickshire, that you might put those banners up?
There aren't many that we can use. I mean, going right up into East Lothian, it's a good distance before you get anywhere where you can find another bridge which is as suitable as those two.
Yeah.
So they're perfect, really. They're in a good position, and yeah, that's great. So apart from that, do you think we were talking earlier to Ruth from Grassroots Oban, and also, crikey, that's terrible. Oh God, I've forgotten the lady's name.
Yeah, we were talking to we were talking to Ruth from Oban, Sheena, who's Glasgow Pensioners for Indy Group, and then the other lady was Irene from Inverness Group. Yeah.
But what I was going to say was they were talking about the banner library. Is that something that your group, have you heard of the banner library organised by the Oban Grassroots Group? Is that something that your group might dip into? Have you heard of that initiative?
At the moment, we're not, apart from the bridges, we're not campaigning, but we have someone in Duns who has a large garden, and they, in the past, have put banners up, and they wanted to put banners up on the roadside in Duns, and we considered it the Oban Library. Personally, I think it's a good thing, but there were people dead against it, and what we decided, we'd buy a couple of our own new banners.
Okay.
So we did that, and they've been there for about 2 months.
Oh, good.
We've got 2 other places they can go to, and that will happen fairly soon. And we're thinking, should we buy more new banners? And we could, but there comes a point where we can't afford to go on buying our own.
Yep.
We should go or consider again going with the Oban banner library.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the banners we loved, some we didn't think we really liked. That's not the point. It gives us a rotation of banners for a fixed fee.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
So we're going to be talking about this next week.
All right.
I think eventually we'll join in with the Oban scheme.
Yeah, great.
Yeah. You're right enough, though, I think, Campbell, that some of them are more popular than others, and that's just a question of people's own personal taste.
Yes, that's right.
That was one of the things that we discussed earlier in our conversation with Irene and Sheena and Ruth, that some of them are not very popular for various reasons, and others are more sought after. So, but I suppose that's inevitable if you have a range of different designs that some folk will prefer some to others. And the live and learn, I would think that, if you have an area where maybe people are walking past, that might be a different type of banner that would be more effective than one where people are driving past.
That's right. If they're walking, they can stop and they can read more words.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So if somebody's just stopped at the traffic lights, you want something with a big, simple, jump out message. You can't have something with too much text, can you?
That's right. Yes.
Oh well. But we certainly think that that's a very novel idea, and it is. Obviously, people in political parties and yes groups, all over the country are going to have to find more creative and inventive ways of campaigning, because a lot of the traditional ways are going to be cut off to us. Marlene's got a question here about Indy support in the borders. How do you think that is just now, support for independence in your area? Do you think that's moving on a bit now? In the wake of the polls that came out yesterday that show growing support for independence?
When we started in Yes Berwickshire in 2012, support in the borders was about 13%.
Wow.
And we had people coming up saying, oh yes, I want independence, but not now, not at this time. And it was very, very hard. On actual referendum day, it was 33%. So we think we made a difference, not a big enough difference. But since 2014, when it was 33%, we are, with lots of evidence, people telling us things, that has certainly gone up. Now, how far it's gone up, I don't know, but I would say it would be the 40% mark, somewhere above 40%. About there.
Well, that's a very positive direction, and I know that in some areas it's a lot more difficult, and I know that the area that you two are working in is one of the harder ones. So more power to you.
Yeah, I think in Berwickshire, a lot of people are very set in their ways. For example, our neighbours, lovely neighbours, they're fine. The farmers, but they agree with almost everything I say or tell them. I think they have a son who's very pro-yes. So if we talk about something, they say, yeah, that's right. But they cannot find themselves able to vote yes, though in many areas they agree with it, but they can't actually vote for it.
They can't.
And there are lots of people like that in Berwickshire.
Do you think that might change, Campbell, once the effects of the UK internal market bills start to make themselves felt on, farming community?
Well, I would imagine so.
Yeah.
But people have fixed ideas.
Yeah.
They have an idea of their place in society, and that means they have to vote a certain way, to keep in with certain people. Oh, we have horses and we do this, we do that. We're up there with the tops. Well, okay, fair enough, and that's what you want. But think about your daily life. How could it be better? Could it be better?
Yeah.
Is it perfect? No, I don't think it is.
Yeah.
Let's make it better then.
Yeah.
Let's do something.
And let's make it better for our children and our grandchildren's generations coming up behind us. Yeah.
Yes.
I think one thing to remember is that we have returned an SNP MP here. There was Callum Kerr from 2015 to 2017, so it's all to fight for.
Mm-hmm.
And going back to the farmers and the internal market, there was an article by Jim Fairley in the Scottish Farmer, I think about a month ago, which was talking about the internal market and what it's going to do to farming prices and standards, etc. And I think that's what we need. I think there was an approach being made to Jim Fairley to see if he could condense what he'd said in the Scottish Farmer to produce a good leaflet. I think the effective way to do it for me is to have targeted leaflets and information that we can put out to different sections of the community.
Absolutely.
And the same with the fishing community as well.
Yeah.
We need the brains to produce the stuff, and then we can get out and get on the hoof and get it distributed, But we need to bring together all the information into a manageable, readable form,
So true. That's very true.
That is true, and it's also true of getting something that's targeted for over 60s or over 65s in the population as well. Yeah.
That's one of the things that Lamentable Lamont is very good at. Is they're very well organised on the ground. They have contacts that we would have difficulty accessing. Care of the elderly. Places like this. There are places which are quite difficult to access.
Yes.
Which you would think would now be persuadable.
Yes, indeed.
Can I move us on just a different topic altogether before we finish up with you guys? Because we do have a question from one of our regular listeners who's part of our radio team, Fiona McGregor, and Fiona in the radio, Indy Live Radio, has been very instrumental in improving things and doing surveys to find out what people want to listen to. And she's got a question here about the indie media, and that includes Indy Live Radio, but not just us. She says that the independence supporting media, like Broadcasting Scotland, Independence Live, different types of media, there are a lot of fragmented bits there of people doing what they can, but is any of it having any impact? And she says, or is it like buses and libraries? Is it the sort of thing that people want to exist but don't actually access it much themselves? In theory, people want things like Indie Live Radio and Independence Live to exist, but they don't necessarily listen to it or watch it themselves. I wonder if you've got any views on that. Can I come to you first, Elon?
A couple of weeks ago, there was the estate on Morven that people were wanting the local community were wanting to buy.
Yeah.
In the end, I think the local community voted against the purchase, which was a real surprise to me. But one of the things that I thought about at the time, I went onto the Scottish Land Registry and looked at all the different projects that had supported, and there was also there's two land purchase organisations in the Scottish borders. And one of the things that I thought about at that time, talking about all the different independence organisations, was why can't we have something like the way that the trade unions are organised? I was active in the NUR and the RMT for most of my working life. They have trade union branches and they have what they call trades councils.
Mm-hmm.
Trades councils bring together all the trade unions that exist in an area. There's one in Berwickshire, and there's one in Berwick-on-Tweed. Now it has delegates from the public service unions, from the railway unions, and from the transport unions. And it seems to me that we should have a central organisation which is pulling all these campaigns together and disseminating that information. I know the National does quite a lot, and you occasionally see in the National about things like land purchase, like the Morven one. They ran an article in the Sunday National. But there doesn't seem to be, like the Yes groups. When the Morven thing was going on, I sent out an email to a couple of the neighbouring Yes groups, and I didn't even get a reply. And all I'd said was, here's an email from the chair of the Morven campaign. Perhaps you'd like to disseminate it and see if anybody wants to support the campaign to buy the land at Morven. Now, I didn't even get a reply from either of them. And you just think, what are apart from the Yes groups organising in their local areas, shouldn't the Yes groups be getting their heads together over things like land purchase, campaigns around Mossmoran, or over salmon farming, over issues like this, day-to-day issues? Shouldn't the Yes movement as a whole be tackling different problems as a united front, rather than just going off on tangents individually, And that's something that I think that all the Yes groups should be thinking about and organising. And I think that kind of thing is crucial before the run up to next May.
I think you're right. I'm in Yes Glasgow Northwest, and I was chairing a meeting of that the other night, and that was one of the things we were discussing was, the emergence of like umbrella organisations, if you like, because I think there are more and more moves afoot to try and link up groups. Like, for example, this weekend, I don't know if any of you guys are signed up to it, but there's a big online conference organised by All Under One Banner. Organisations like that do have a role, and also Believe in Scotland, the former Business for Scotland, which is now kind of developed into Believe in Scotland. I think they are seeing a role for themselves in being a forum for Yes groups to link up. I think what you're saying there is really a powerful idea, though, the idea of Yes groups working together to unite on causes that transcend just the fight for independence, that transcend, they're important for the future of Scotland, particularly in terms of the environment.
I mean, it's an interesting idea. I'm just going to be devil's advocate a wee bit, Lauren, because, how to put it? I mean, you've mentioned various single issue campaigns, so land reform, salmon farming, and the other ones that you mentioned. So every one of those you mentioned, I could easily, lend support to those, especially land reform. But there's only so much time in the week, and there are groups already set up. I mean, there's a Revive. That's specifically Grousemoor renewing, but there's already single issue groups set up that are focusing on that. So I kind of wonder if it would really work to suggest that Yes groups get involved in that as a single issue. On the other hand, you'd think that if there was something like possibility of a community land buyout, then local people would gather round. But I'm not quite sure that it would work in terms of the Yes groups doing it, because our single issue's independence, isn't it? So I just have a few questions about it as an idea.
To an extent, I think that's absolutely right, that there's only so much we can do. But to me, it's just, I mean, the Morven one, for example, I didn't know anything at all about the Morven one, I think, till a fortnight before the closing date for the funds. and there was an article, a double-page article in the Sunday National, and something as important as that. I thought, why is it a fortnight away and I've only found out about this? Mm-hmm. Because I think that, like you, I think that land reform in Scotland is perhaps one of the top of the agenda issues for an independent Scotland. And it just seemed, I mean, I suppose you could say I'm not spending enough time trawling the web to find out about things like Morven and the land purchases in the borders. But I just felt that I should have known about that beforehand, you know?
Yeah.
Well, listen, it seems like you're doing some fantastic work down there, and you never know. We were enjoying speaking to people in different parts of the country. It's absolutely great. So once these restrictions get lifted, I think we're going to have to go on tour and go and visit some of the people. We'll come and stand on your bridge.
Yeah,
so we will.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Spare bedroom here anytime.
Oh, wonderful. That's great. We'll have a wee weekend down with you. But listen, to both of you, thanks very much for coming on the programme. And it's really good kind of speaking to you. Yeah.
Bye for now.
Yeah.
Yes. And bye for now. Nice to speak to you.
Thank you so much.
Bye.